Hello Ellingham. I hope you've been enjoying your learning on the theme of Victory in Europe Day. Today, our story also sees our red, white and blue flag of the Union Jack being waved proudly. And the person, or should I say the bear, that waves this flag is very special. He wears a hat, and underneath the hat he often keeps marmalade sandwiches. And he can't help but get into trouble, although he's very lovable. Do you know who I'm talking about? It's Paddington. Paddington has had stories written about him for a very long time. And in fact, he is inspired by the children of World War II, because he himself is also an evacuee that had to do a long journey from home. And on his journey, he had to wear a label that was attached to his coat. A little bit like this. And on the back of it, during World War II, you would have the name and your address of your family. But on the back of Paddington's label, it says, "Please look after this bear." And of course we will. So Paddington, can you sit there? And hopefully he'll enjoy the story like you. This story is called Paddington at the Palace. And there he is, waving his flag. Let's begin. One morning, Paddington and Mr. Gruber set out to see the changing of the guards at Buckingham Palace. Mr. Gruber took his camera, Paddington took a flag on a stick in case he saw the Queen, and they both sat on the front seat of the bus so they could see all the places of interest on the way. Here he is, off he goes, and sitting on the bus. The bus took them most of the way, and then they had to walk through St. James's Park. It was a lovely sunny morning, and there were flowers everywhere. "I think I might pick one for the Queen," said Paddington. "I'm afraid that's against the law," said Mr. Gruber. "This is what is known as a royal park, and all the flowers belong to the Queen anyway. Besides, it would spoil it for others. If you like, I'll take a picture of you for your scrapbook instead." "Fancy having a front garden as big as this," said Paddington. "I wonder if she has to mow the lawn." Here he is, in the park, and having his photograph taken. Mr. Gruber laughed, and then, as they drew near to some large gates, he pointed towards the roof of a building behind them. "We're in luck's way, Mr. Brown," he said. "There's a flag flying. That means the Queen is at home." Paddington peered through the railings and waved his own flag several times in case the Queen was watching. "I think I saw someone at the window, Mr. Gruber," he called excitedly. "Do you think it was the Queen?" "Who knows?" said Mr. Gruber. And there they are, waving their flag through the railings. Can you see the shadow at the top? Could that be the Queen? Soon after they heard the sound of a band playing. The music got louder and louder, and there was lots of shouting and the clump clump of marching feet. But by then there were so many people Paddington couldn't see a thing. Let's have a look. The marching band and all the people, the children waving their flags. But where's Paddington? Can you see him? There he is, right at the back. He can't see very much. Has that ever happened to you? Mr. Gruber wondered whether he ought to suggest holding Paddington up to sea, but in the end he brought him a periscope instead. "If you look through the bottom end," he explained, "you can see over the top of people's heads." Paddington tried it out, but all he could see were other people's faces. and he didn't think much of some of those. I don't think he's using it properly. In the end, he tried crawling through the legs of the crowd, but by the time he got to the other side, the band had passed. There he is, squeezing through. "Look," said a small boy, pointing at Paddington. "One of the soldiers has dropped his hat." "It's what they call a Busby, dear," said his mother. Paddington jumped to his feet. "I'm not a Busby," he cried. "I'm a bear." Gradually the crowd melted away until there were only a few people left. "Oh dear," said Mr. Gruber. "It's all over, and I didn't even get a picture of you with one of the guardsmen." "I didn't even see them," said Paddington sadly. And look, that's Paddington on the floor after he's tried to crawl through, and the little boy thinks that he's the hat. But he's not the hat called a Busby, he's the bear. Oh dear. Just then a man in a bowler hat said something to a policeman by the gate and then pointing towards Paddington and Mr. Gruber. The policeman beckoned to them. "I've instructions to invite you inside so that you can take a proper photograph," he called. "You're very honoured." I wonder why they were invited in. There they are. Paddington felt most important as he and Mr. Gruber followed the policeman across the palace parade ground and the guard came to attention. "I think," he said as he stood to attention while Mr. Gruber took a photograph, "this guard is so good he doesn't need changing." There he is, having his photograph taken. Can you see his Busby hat? As they left the palace, Paddington stopped by the gates to wave his flag. "Do you think it was the Queen looking out of the window when he first came?" he asked. "It was either the Queen," said Mr. Gruber, "or it was someone who likes bears very much." And he took one last picture for Paddington's scrapbook. "You must mark the window with a cross when you paste it in, just in case." One last photograph by the palace. And there he is. He's stuck it in his scrapbook and marked the window. So, Paddington, do you think you really saw the Queen at the window and that's why you got to go inside? I hope so. What a special day. Thank you for joining me on our story time. See you soon.